Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. In this video, I'm going to look at the week starting on Monday, February the 12th, 2024. And this week runs through until Sunday, February the 18th, 2024. So before I get going, I just want to talk about the structure of this video. I'm going to start off by doing a blow-by-blow account of the main astrological events this week. Starting on Monday, February the 12th. These are the main events as I see it. I mean, you might disagree. There is a certain element of subjectivity here. So I'm going to look at these events. And as far as I'm concerned, probably the main event is a conjunction between Mars and Pluto in Aquarius. So when I've done that, I'm going to consider a number of famous people, and I'm going to suggest that maybe the Mars-Pluto conjunction this week may have an impact on them. Now, there's not just people, there is a wedding as well, because I also want to look at the marriage of Prince Harry and Meghan, because there is a precise time when that marriage happened, and I want to look at that wedding chart, because I do think that the Mars-Pluto conjunction might impact it. There's also at the moment, in terms of Prince Harry, Uranus is having an impact on him. It's a fairly ongoing impact, but it might be intensified towards the end of the week. Of course, when we look at these sort of famous people, we try our hardest, at least I try my hardest, to suggest what might be going on in their lives. But are we ever going to know? Are they going to talk about it? I mean, I'm probably referring to things that, things that might not even manifest. But even if they do manifest, are they going to tell the world about it? Probably not. So that's the astrology. Having done that, I'm going to do an I Ching reading for the week as a whole, and this I Ching reading is going to have 4 sections: a sort of general overview, then I'm going to look at money, then career and business, and then relationships. And as I always say with this I Ching reading, it is a form of divination, and divination is always voluntary. So when you come to the part of the video when I do my I Ching reading, you don't have to watch it. You don't have to have an I Ching reading. If you don't want to know, then you don't have to be there. In fact, if you don't watch the section of this video relating to the I Ching, that forecast, that sort of divination has no impact on you. It is only relevant to people that actually watch the segment relating to that reading. So bear that in mind, and if you want to just stop the video when you get to the I Ching, that's fine. Okay, so let's have a look at what's going on this week. There are a few people there. That's Boris Johnson. That's Donald Tusk, who is the Prime Minister of Poland, and of course that is Harry and Meghan. Now, when I show you that picture of Harry and Meghan, that doesn't mean I'm going to be horribly negative about them. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say about them. So, if you're a fan of Harry and Meghan, I'm not singling them out for criticism or anything like that. I've just noticed that the Mars-Pluto conjunction does hit their wedding chart. Okay, so let's start with the positions of the planets at the beginning of the week. So what you have here, this is a chart in New York, set for the moment the week starts. And I'm taking the view that weeks start on Monday. They don't start on Sunday. So this is when Sunday moves to Monday on Monday, February the 12th, 2024. And it's set for New York. You can see that actually there's a big conjunction in Aquarius on Monday. This conjunction has obviously been forming for some time, but there is something quite special about this conjunction between Pluto, Mercury, and the Sun. Now, you might say, oh, that's quite a wide conjunction because, Mercury is over 10 degrees from Pluto and Sun is over 10 degrees from Mercury. But the thing is that Mercury is exactly on the Sun-Pluto midpoint. So that's what the week starts with. The week starts with, Mercury on the Sun-Pluto midpoint. So what does that mean, Mercury on the Sun-Pluto midpoint? Well, Mercury is about communication. And the pair of Sun and Pluto are about power and how we assert our power. And some of us may be able to communicate in an incredibly powerful way. So if we want something done on Monday or the beginning of a week, we can make our views very clear. And I think we're going to find it quite easy to get our way. Now, if that doesn't apply, if we don't feel like asserting ourselves like that, then maybe it's someone else doing the assertion. So watch out for people who are very clear about their desires and who are pretty manipulative. Not manipulative in an emotional way, more manipulative in a sort of verbal, mental kind of way. People coming up with clear arguments, people expressing powerful views that in some ways are difficult to resist. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we should just accept the situation, because Mercury is not just on the Sun-Pluto midpoint. It is also making a semi-square to Neptune. Now, that semi-square to Neptune puts things in a rather different light. It does suggest that some people are going to be devious. I mean, Neptune is the planet of deviousness, of deception. And so people are certainly going to come up with very clever ideas. But can we trust them? Can we believe them? Probably not. And, we might be guilty of being manipulative ourselves, with Mercury semi-square Neptune. We can use words in a clever way. But just because we use words in a clever way doesn't mean that we are clever. Because with Mercury semi-square Neptune, as you know, remember this is a 45-degree aspect, it's a hard aspect. We've got, Mercury is the way our brain works, and we are struggling with Neptune. We're trying to work out how to deal with something quite difficult to understand. And in the process, we might make some huge mistakes. And so I would suggest at the beginning of a week that we don't reach conclusions. We don't make commitments because we don't have all the facts. And if we do have all the facts, we might misunderstand these facts. So be careful there. As we move into Tuesday, Mars changes sign. So you can see right at the beginning of a week, Mars is in the last degree of Capricorn. So then Mars moves into Aquarius. In some ways, nothing changes because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and so is Aquarius. So Mars continues moving through a Saturn-ruled sign. But Aquarius and Capricorn are different signs. They're different aspects of Saturn. Aquarius is a positive masculine sign. Capricorn is a sort of negative feminine sign. I must emphasize I'm not using the word negative in a derogatory sense, in the same way that I'm not using sort of masculine in a sort of what's the opposite of derogatory, in a sort of favorable way. I'm being neutral about this. But with Mars in Aquarius, I think many of us are going to be quite idealistic. We're going to be putting a lot of our energies into ideas. How do we want to organize the world? What kind of world do we want to live in? We may be quite stubborn. We mustn't forget that Aquarius is a fixed sign. It's an air sign, but it's a fixed sign. Not much flexibility there. We're going to make up our minds, and that will be that. And we won't take kindly to people telling us that we've got it wrong. And at the same time, we may put quite a lot of energy into creating our own space, because Aquarius can be quite a detached sign. So Mars moving into Aquarius, it is quite an important sign change. Not least because the moment Mars moves into Aquarius, it starts moving towards a conjunction with Pluto. And on Wednesday, this conjunction between Mars and Pluto becomes exact. This emphasizes the point that Pluto has moved into Aquarius. Mars hitting Pluto is a very energetic aspect. It can be intense. It can actually be fanatical. Mars is putting its energy not just into ideas, but it is wanting to really focus that energy in a fairly single-minded way. And this could encourage extremism. But on a positive note, if we dedicate ourselves to the right set of goals with Mars conjunct Pluto, we can cover a lot of ground, because we can direct ourselves with laser beam precision at our goals, and we can achieve them. But it's quite intense, and how we respond to this Mars conjunct Pluto kind of depends on us. Some of us might find that Mars conjunct Pluto conjunction, that conjunction, to be quite scary, to be quite overwhelming, and we might take the view that we need to retreat. But some of us might regard it as a call to action. This is our time. This is the time we've got to get things done. We're going to want our way, and we won't really care too much how we get our way. Be careful. Just because you want something doesn't mean that you should do everything to get it. What are you going to break in order to get your way? Who are you going to upset? Which friendships are you going to destroy forever in order to get your way? So with that Mars conjunct Pluto, you do have to be careful. Moving on to Friday, and there are two aspects on Friday that are worth considering. So there is Saturn, and Mars will be at around 1 Aquarius on Friday. So that means that Mars and Saturn are going to be 36 degrees apart. So we have a decile, because 36 degrees is 1/10 of the circle. I've talked about deciles quite a lot recently. Deciles, remember, are a tenth of a circle. So that relates to 5 times 2. So 5 is about style. It's a very man-made aspect relating to the quintile. 2 is about struggle. And Mars and Saturn, some of us are going to be trying to create a style of hard work and intensity. We're going to give the impression that everything is really difficult. Not just difficult, but sort of dangerous. And, there are going to be people who like to sort of talk up concepts of death and destruction because that's the kind of style they want to create. Maybe I'm sometimes guilty of that. Because I'll be honest, I'm obsessed with Mars and Saturn. I don't know what it is about that pair, Mars and Saturn. I'm just completely obsessed about that pair. Maybe that's just me and how warped I am. But there is this Mars-Saturn quintile. So if you're watching these videos, you might find that I just can't help myself when it comes to talking about Mars and Saturn. So I will try make a real effort not to exaggerate the importance of Mars and Saturn. I was just thinking recently in fact about an hour ago, that I wanted to make a video all about Mars and Saturn, just a quick 10-minute video, because that's what I really wanted to do. So I'm perhaps picking up on this decal early, but yes. So people may be talking about death and destruction and trying to make a big thing about it. Maybe they're trying to scare you, or maybe it's you trying to scare other people, or me trying to scare people. I don't know. That Mars-Saturn does. It shouldn't bother. You should try not to let it bother you too much. So if people are talking about death and destruction, just take the view probably that it's just their style. That's what they want to do to get attention. They feel they have to do it, but maybe deep down they're not as serious as they sound. Now, also on Friday, Venus moves into Aquarius. So, Venus has been in Capricorn for some time. Now it's moving into Aquarius. Venus moving into Aquarius. Venus remains in a Saturn-ruled sign. So it's been in Capricorn and it's been in Aquarius. I think in many respects Venus is in quite a good position. It was in good position in Capricorn. It's a good position in Aquarius. Reason being that Saturn is currently in Pisces, and Pisces is a sign in which Venus is exalted, and Capricorn and Aquarius are the signs which Saturn rules. So Venus and Saturn remain in mixed reception. So it can be relatively easy to be sort of reserved and to control the way we relate to people, being able to keep our distance, but in quite a sort of dignified way without seeming too detached and repressed. But with Venus in Aquarius, there is this concept of independence. People are going to value their independence. So be careful when it comes to proximity, getting too close to people. People have their boundaries with Venus in Aquarius. They like to do things their way. No one is controlled by another person. At least that's the way it should be with Venus in Aquarius. So if someone appears, or you've been close to perhaps recently, appears icy and detached, don't take it to heart. It's just Venus in Aquarius. Venus is not going to stay in Aquarius forever, but while Venus remains in a Saturn-ruled sign, that detachment should be respected. And icy, maybe that's just a projection. Maybe they're not really being icy, but they just want, people just want their own space. And I think that should be respected. As we move into the weekend, Saturday the 17th, Mercury makes a square to Uranus. This could be exciting. Mercury is the brain. It's how we communicate. Uranus sort of stirs things up, and we'll have lots to say. But perhaps with Mercury square Uranus, we just have to be careful that we don't lose control of things. Things we might say things that just are just disruptive for the sake of it. And, we might say something accidentally without meaning to cause offence, and it might cause major offence. Also, over the weekend, Saturday, I think that's Saturday the 17th, Venus is conjunct Pluto. So Venus in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. So, yes, that can relate to intense relationships. You might associate Venus conjunct Pluto with a lot of passion, but it's in Aquarius. I don't think Venus conjunct Pluto in Aquarius is quite as passionate as, say, Venus conjunct Pluto in Scorpio or Cancer or Pisces. I think that Venus conjunct Pluto may be actually about people being really obsessed about their independence. Although obsession is going to be there. So I think that there are things to be obsessed about this week. And, relationships overall this week, they need some thought, and I think they need some respect. It's not a week for rushing into relationships without thinking. And I'm saying thinking because we're getting a lot of stuff in Aquarius. You look at the beginning of the week. We have Pluto, Mercury, and Sun, and the Sun in Aquarius. By the end of the week, we've got both Venus and Mars in Aquarius. So we've got 4 of the traditional planets, the Moon through to Saturn in Aquarius, plus Pluto. It's about thinking, not really about feeling on its own. So bear that in mind. We're getting a big build-up in Aquarius here. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to look at some people who may be affected by this Mars-Pluto conjunction. And I think I'm going to start off with Harry and Meghan. So this is the chart for their marriage, I think. So Harry and Meghan got married on May the 19th, 2018, in Windsor Castle in England. I think it's at 39 minutes. No, maybe that time isn't exactly right, but at around 12:39 in the afternoon, around lunchtime. So this is a chart for their marriage. So in a way, this is the birth chart of their marriage. This is when it's a big event, their wedding, and this perhaps describes the couple in some respects. And you can see that at the time of their marriage, Mars was in Aquarius, and it was square Uranus in Taurus. So it is a Mars square Uranus marriage. There may be 2 possible manifestations. I mean, maybe more in terms of that Mars square Uranus. Now, Mars square Uranus is, at one level, is very hasty. It's explosive. It's in fixed signs. Mars in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus. It is, it's in fixed signs. And it makes people very stubborn, very focused on themselves. It also makes them rebellious. And I suppose you could argue that has been seen pretty soon afterwards, with Harry and Meghan going to America. All of these issues about breaking off with the royal family, and you know the story better than me, and that's very much part of what their marriage is about. Another thing about this chart is that Uranus is conjunct King Charles's moon. So he was giving away Meghan on that wedding day with Uranus exactly on his moon. I wonder what he was really feeling at the time. But there's that Mars square Uranus. As far as how it relates to how Meghan and Harry are getting on with each other. Now, you might say getting married with Mars square Uranus is a recipe for marital strife. But maybe what they're doing is they're taking that potential for strife and they're pushing it out onto the outside world. And that's kind of an interesting psychological process. You by seeing it as them against us, you're actually strengthening the relationship. So in a way, you could argue about Mars square Uranus, by having all of these battles with the press and with other, particularly the British press and the royal family and people like Piers Morgan, they're actually strengthening their own relationship, because it's just them against the world. Okay, not quite. They've got their supporters, but that's how the Mars Uranus is working. But what must never happen is that Mars square Uranus, you don't want it to get internalized. So if everything was fine, if there were no struggles with the press, if no one criticized Meghan and Harry, if Harry stopped suing people, if everything was calm and everyone was nice, that Mars square Uranus would still be there, and that might be when the marriage comes into trouble. So it becomes starts running into trouble. That's when all that stress and struggle and rebelliousness, which at the moment is being pushed outwards, could start to be internalized, and then the marriage might be in trouble. So that's the general picture with the Mars square Uranus. And so what's happened over the last few weeks is that Pluto has gone into Aquarius. So Pluto is now moving towards the Mars in the marriage. And this week, Mars is moving into Aquarius, so we've got a Mars return coming up. In fact, we've got Venus moving into Aquarius as well, so we've kind of got Venus and Mars together hitting Harry's Mars this week, and of course Venus probably will be hitting it the week after. Sorry, did I say Harry's Mars? I meant to say the marriage Mars. And so I think that could really stir things up. Again, we might not see it. We might not see any outward action going on there, but I think there could be issues there, quite possibly. Now, while I'm on the subject of Harry and Meghan, I should probably just quickly look at Harry's chart, because it is something that needs to be looked at here. Okay, that's Harry's chart. Uranus at the moment is at around 19 Taurus. So it's on his moon midheaven midpoint. As I mentioned when I talked about King Charles's cancer diagnosis, looking at what was happening in the charts of members of a royal family, I sort of noticed that Uranus is basically on Harry's midheaven moon midpoint, and sort of Uranus is moving towards his moon now. So that's really I think this is really quite devastating. I think what's happening to Harry. I think his concept of roots is being really threatened. Where are his roots? His roots are in England, are they, or are they in California? Where are they? And I think that's a question that Harry is having to deal with, and he may feel that at some level the roots that he has may be threatened by this kind of earthquake-like event. And remember that if we in Western astrology, the fourth house is usually associated with the father, and so that fourth house, the father, remembering he's got Taurus on the IC. I'm using a Placidus house cast in this case, not whole sign. But if his Placidus fourth house is the Placidus fourth house is covered by Taurus. His father has Moon in Taurus, and he's had Uranus going over this IC, and it's affected his roots, but it's also affected his father. And now we've got this cancer diagnosis. I don't know how serious it is. I kind of don't want to speculate, but with Uranus on his moon midheaven midpoint, it is a problem, and I think he's quite very stressed out by it. And then this weekend, I think Saturday the 17th, as I've just said, Mercury is square Uranus. So Mercury is acting as a trigger. So Uranus is on his moon midheaven midpoint. Uranus is a slow-moving planet. It can be on this point for weeks, even months sometimes. It depends on the situation. But then fast-moving Uranus comes in, and it's like a detonator. So you've got this explosive device on the IC, which is Uranus, and then Mercury comes along, Mercury square Uranus, and that is the detonation. But again, what's Harry going to do? Are we going to see what Harry's going to do? Are we going to see what's happening in Harry's life? Okay, he needs to be careful. We don't want him to have a domestic accident or anything like that. But Harry has to be careful with that Mercury square Uranus, and I think it's more likely to manifest in terms of how he expresses his feelings and how he's treating his wife and his family. Remembering that the marriage has got a Mars return this week. So yes, Harry and Meghan, it could be a difficult week for them, and it's all part of a process, because Mars is triggering this larger thing of Pluto going into Aquarius, Pluto hitting the marriages, Mars in Aquarius, and as far as the IC, Mercury triggering Uranus, this slow-moving planet, which is on the IC. So that's not the Pluto hitting the marriage Mars and Uranus hitting the Pluto midheaven moon midpoint. That's not just a one-day wonder. This is something lasting for weeks, months, even in Pluto. A couple of years even. So that's Harry and Meghan. So let's look at a couple of people I sometimes refer to. I'm not going to spend long on these people. I'm just pointing it out. Marine Le Pen. She's the French right-wing leader. Oh, what's that party called? I should know. I keep forgetting what her party. Because it used to be the Front National, but she changed the name, and I've forgotten what it's called now. But anyway, this is her chart. She stood against Macron in the last presidential election. I think in a presidential election before that as well, and she lost him both times. But I just need to point out that she's recently had Mars. She's got her Mars at 2949 Cancer. So right now, in fact, just before, at the very beginning of a week, just before Mars moves into Mars moves into Aquarius. She's got Mars opposition Mars. I don't know how that's going to manifest. Will probably never know. But if you're French, you might find that of some interest. So that's Marine Le Pen. Another female politician is Nicola Sturgeon. She's, of course, no longer Scottish First Minister. She was forced out. I forget the details of the scandal, but she has Mars. She has her Mars at 051 Leo. So she's got Mars opposition Mars this week, and of course she's got Pluto opposition Mars. So Pluto going into Aquarius will have hit Nicola Sturgeon, I think, quite hard. And I know things have been difficult for her since she resigned as First Minister of Scotland. But with Pluto opposition her Mars, I think the difficulties may continue. And with Mars opposition her Mars this week, that's it would be difficult anyway having Mars opposition Mars. But when you've got Pluto, that Mars-Pluto conjunction hitting her Mars, that is extra difficult. So yes, she might be having a difficult time this week. Another British politician, or at least another former British politician, is Boris Johnson. One of the important things about Boris Johnson is his moon in Scorpio. Now that is Boris Johnson's chart set for when he was born. He's born in New York, and so Boris Johnson was very much associated with Britain's support for Ukraine. There's a view that Boris Johnson was a sort of a messenger boy and pressuring Ukraine to pull out of the Istanbul agreements, which were pull out of the Istanbul talks, and there were, I think it was April 2022 that there were talks in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine, and then Boris visited Kiev, and after that, I think at that time the talks came to a halt. Boris seemed to like going to Kiev. He seemed to have an affinity with Ukraine. Now, let me just show you a trick in terms of Boris's chart. So this is Boris's chart set for New York. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relocate his chart exactly the same time, but I'm going to change the location to Kiev. Yeah? So here's the trick. So we take his chart, we relocate it to Kiev. There we go. And there you see, there's the midheaven. Moon, Boris has a moon exactly on the midheaven when you relocate his chart to Kiev. No wonder Boris had such a strong affinity with Kiev. I was watching videos of Boris going to Kiev and how he related to people on the street. Well, while I strongly disagree with Boris's approach to Ukraine, there was something rather magnificent about it. He's as a politician, he was doing a good job. He looked comfortable. Maybe he should have stayed in Kiev. So the moon on the midheaven, he just has this incredible affinity to it, to that city, and because Kiev is the capital of Ukraine. I know, okay, it's Kyiv, isn't it? But that moon is important, and that moon is, yes, that moon is at 0 Scorpio, and Pluto has just gone into Aquarius, so Pluto is squaring Boris's moon. Further, Mars is moving into Aquarius, so Mars is squaring Boris's moon. So we have a Mars-Pluto conjunction square Boris's moon. Will that have any relationship to his relationship to Kiev, however you want to say it? Maybe Boris will be thinking about his relationship with Ukraine, but it may have nothing to do with Ukraine. It may just be about the way he's feeling and whatever. That moon in Boris's chart. Let me just put it back to London. Okay, that's very, sorry, not London. It was actually New York. So that's back to his New York. That's back to his regular chart. So I don't know. Moon is quite close to his second house cusp. I mean, maybe it's something to do with money. Boris has got a lot of commitments. That moon in Scorpio in Boris's chart gives us a very different view of the man. It puts him in a different light, not quite as nice and extroverted and friendly as his and positive as his standard image is. It gives a darker view of Boris, that moon in Scorpio. And with Mars and Pluto making that conjunction square to his moon this week, and of course Venus later in the week when Venus moves into Sagittarius, into Aquarius, Venus will be squaring it. So that moon is really highlighted today. I mean, these are quite private aspects. So really, are we going to see them? I don't know, but Boris might be someone to watch this week. So anyone else? Let's just turn to Eastern Europe. Robert Fico. Robert Fico is the Prime Minister of the Slovak Republic. He sort of resigned in 2018. There was a big scandal after a journalist was murdered, and many people in Slovakia had kind of taken the view that he'd been in power too long, that his government was involved in things that it basically shouldn't have been involved, and that people wanted a clean break. But now he's back, and Fico is kind of more neutral on the Russia-Ukraine war than many other people in Europe. I mean, I think Robert Fico in his youth was a member of the Communist Party, I believe, and from a left-wing party, SME, and there are a lot of protests in Slovakia. I think he's trying to make changes, legal changes, kind of similar to what was happening in Poland before with the previous government. He was because I don't know the details, but I think it had something to do with independent prosecutors, and he's trying to roll back on changes that were. But he was finding legal changes that he was finding annoying. I'm sorry, I'm a bit vague on this. But there have been very big demonstrations in Slovakia, which would no doubt have put him under a certain amount of pressure. And if you look at his chart, you can see that he's got his Mars at 0 degrees Leo. So he has got Pluto. Pluto is opposition his Mars, and he's got, now this week he's going to have a Mars-Pluto conjunction opposition his Mars. So I think Robert Fico could be under a lot of pressure this week. and in general, with Pluto opposition his Mars, I mean, keeping the whole thing together is going to be tough. And also, I think there are a lot of people who are going to want to undermine Fico, not least because of his attitude to Ukraine. The fact that he has doubts about whether it's a good idea, supporting Ukraine, kind of like Viktor Orban. But I don't think politically his position is as strong as Viktor Orban's, and so he might have a vulnerability. So it may some people. When you see all these protests, are they spontaneous, or are people who want to get rid of Fico helping to stir things up? I mean, that's possible. And so, yes, he is going to be under a lot of pressure, and I think his enemies might be quite pleased to see the fact that he's got Mars opposition, Pluto opposition Mars, and this week Mars is going to be opposition his Mars. So this is a kind of weaker vulnerability. So I suppose if you're an enemy of Fico and you're into astrology, then this week, it's a good time to try and get him. So yeah, that's Robert Fico's horoscope. And finally, there is the chart of Donald Tusk. Now, Donald Tusk is the Prime Minister of Poland. So his party and the alliance he was involved with recently won an election, or they did well enough, and so he's become Prime Minister. It's a tense situation in Poland because the president of Poland, I believe, is from the old regime. So the Prime Minister and the President don't get on too well. And Donald Tusk is trying to roll everything back. The previous ruling party was PIS, Peace. I think they were trying to control. They were trying to interfere with the judiciary and freedom of the press and television media, and he's trying to roll all this back. But of course, he's running into the criticism now when he's sort of that he is himself attacking the press and attacking television stations. I mean, that's a view. So that's part of what he's doing, and Donald Tusk is very much part of the sort of neocon globalist movement that is trying to keep everyone on the same, singing from the same hymn sheet. Very pro-Europe. I think he'd been a commissioner in the European Union, and so now he's very much a representative of the globalists and how he's trying to bring Poland back into line. And there are protests. I think Polish truck drivers are opposing free access from Ukraine, because I think there was competition from Ukrainian truck drivers, and there was competition from Ukrainian goods undermining the Polish economy. Plus the fact that the peace government had major restrictions on abortion, and Donald Tusk is trying to roll those back. He's being sort of, so he also has a progressive agenda. So he's under a lot of pressure, like Robert Fico, but for different reasons. They're not political friends, obviously, Donald Tusk and Robert Fico. Now, Donald Tusk was born April 22nd, 1957, and his sun is at 1 degrees 33 Taurus, and his moon is at 1 degrees 34 Aquarius. So Pluto moving into Aquarius is starting to make a conjunction to his moon it's also starting to make a square to his sun, because he was born with a sun-moon square. And so this means that when the moment Mars moves into Aquarius, it will make a conjunction to his moon. It will be triggering and intensifying the Pluto aspect. Mars will also be squaring his sun. So that suggests that for Donald Tusk, it's going to be a difficult week. And of course, Venus is moving into Aquarius as well. So this Mars-Pluto conjunction this week does seem to affect Tusk in a big way. Oh, further, and sorry, I've missed Uranus. Look at Uranus. Let's really go into his chart. He's got Moon at 1 degree 34 Aquarius. He's got Uranus at 255 Leo. So he's got a Moon-Uranus opposition. In fact, he has got a Grand Cross. There is Moon. Grand Crosses are actually quite rare. They're not completely common, particularly if you use tight orbs. So he's got Moon opposition Uranus. He's got Moon square Neptune. He's got Moon square the Sun, and he's got Sun and Venus opposition Neptune. This is someone who actually could misunderstand the situation. I don't know if he fully understands what's going on in Poland with that Neptune. And I think this is really going to be emphasized with this Pluto. Pluto changing sign, moving into Aquarius, squaring his sun. He's going to have a great need to assert himself. And of course, oh, by the way, he's of course saying that, Ukraine should be given all the help it needs. That somehow Russia is a real threat to the West. I don't think it is really, certainly not in a military sense. But Pluto is stirring up that Grand Cross, and it will be stirring up that Grand Cross for a long time, not for the next year or two. Pluto is going to be really hitting that Grand Cross. But this week, Mars is triggering it all. So he's going to have Mars moving into Aquarius. It's going to be square his Sun. He's going to square his Sun, square his Neptune, conjunct his Moon, and opposition his Uranus. So really difficult time coming up for Donald Tusk. One wonders how he's going to manage. It's going to be tough. So we'll have to watch how that goes, and I think I'm probably going to be looking at his chart again because it is quite an interesting chart, and he's certainly under a lot of pressure. So I've now sort of finished with the astrology. That's all I'm going to say, and I now want to turn to the I want to turn to the I Ching. Now, as I said at the beginning of this video, if you don't want to be part of this divination, you don't have to be. This divination actually only applies to people who are watching the I Ching segment of this video. If you don't watch it, it doesn't apply to you. So you can, if you want, you can just you can stop watching. It really is up to you. Okay, so what else? So as I start talking about the I Ching, if you're going to watch me, to begin with, just think about what you want to know. What's bothering you? What would you like to know about? Think about it. Okay, I might not say precisely what you want to hear. I mean, in the sense that I might not address what you want to know directly. So, but try to think about it, and when you listen to me, try to see if there is somewhere in what I say may relate to what's on your mind. Okay, so what I did was I asked the question: what is the week starting on Monday, February the 12th, are going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I threw was hexagram number 14. Possession in great measure. There are 64 hexagrams. And in some respects, 14 is the best. It just shows that it's a time when you can get what you want. And you can be in possession of really great things. When I talk about possession, I'm not just talking about money and material things. I can be talking about education. I can be talking about knowledge. It may be a reminder that you are in possession of great things in terms of what you know. So, it's not necessarily about something new coming into your life, like, I don't know, a wad of money. It may just be a reminder that you are already in possession of, in great measure. But it is fortunate because it shows that you can actually use these possessions in a really very constructive way. Now, there is a moving line, and the fifth line moves. Fifth line from the top moves, and in the I Ching, usually the fifth line from the bottom moves, and usually with the I Ching, that fifth line from the bottom is usually pretty fortunate, and it shows that you are you are sincere, and because of your sincerity, people are going to like you and they're going to trust you. But by the same token, you can't just let things happen in a chaotic kind of way. It's important that you're respected through and through, because there seems to be some danger of disrespect. I mean a mild danger, but it's important that you carry yourself in a way that commands respect, whatever you're doing. And that's the best way to deal with it. It's just not enough for people to think you're great. You have to make sure they respect you as well. And this hexagram 14, it does move. It moves to hexagram number 1, the creative. The creative, you can see all the lines are unbroken. It's an incredibly primal force, the creative. So with all these possessions, with everything you've got, you are in a position to create massive change. You can be the originator of this change this week. You can be the spark. And it's kind of new, and it's kind of sort of empty. It's just raw change. It's not saying where the change is. It's not defining the change. It's just raw change. So whatever you're doing, you are the spark. You can create. You can be just plain creative. Maybe this relates to the astrology, because this week there is a conjunction between Mars and Pluto, and when I was discussing a Mars and Pluto conjunction, I was saying, well, it could be quite difficult because it's very intense, but there's a lot of desire there, and perhaps it's about raw power. And so with the raw power of Mars conjunct Pluto, yes, you can create some amazing things, but you do have to make sure that you have a little bit of focus. Okay, the trouble is, if you have focus, you may be destroying the power of your own creativity. You just need to let it run to an extent. But at a certain point, it does have to be harnessed. Again, that may be where the Mars-Pluto comes in, having to really focus your creative energy like a laser beam on the things you actually want to achieve. So that's the general picture. Now I want to turn to money. Um, Now, in terms of money questions, the one hexagram you really want to have is possession in great measure. So, from a financial point of view, things do look really good. And in a way, I don't like being so positive. I'm very wary of being positive, particularly when it comes to money. I mean, things are always difficult with money, aren't they? And when people visit psychics and astrologers and all, but there's so much pressure, isn't there, to say everything's wonderful, everything's fine, the money's there, it's just around the corner. And I kind of hate doing that because because I'm just, maybe I'm a pessimist, maybe I'm a realist, but I'm just wary of being personally being too positive about money. But 14, possession in great measure. Think about it. Where is that scope for making money? Maybe it's just saying something about your current situation. Maybe your financial situation actually isn't so bad. If you actually look at what you've got in the bank, maybe it's fine. Or if you're not comfortable with your financial situation, with 14, possession in great measure, there's got to be a way, hasn't there, for you to get the money you need. So if appropriate, you must be taking every opportunity to get more money. It's going to be easier than usual, I think, to sort of loosen the purse strings and to get people to, or organizations, or maybe getting a raise at work, whatever it is. It does look very good from a financial perspective. And once you feel a confidence that you are financially confident, that you feel you've got enough resources to survive and prosper, that allows you to move to the next hexagram, which is the creative. Of course, I should point out, so I just want to go back to the previous line, this broken line, which switches to an unbroken line. It's just a reminder there that in terms of the way you handle your resources, you do need a certain amount of self-respect. People need to respect your money. Your money needs to be respected. It's not about you handing money out to people or people taking advantage of you financially. People are attracted to you in some ways because of money. But I don't think it's necessarily because they want to get the better of you, although you should consider that possibility. It's more perhaps that you kind of feel that you're a safe pair of hands, and maybe you can give someone else some really good financial advice. But you've just got to be very serious about it. It's not a time for triviality with money, not at all. But anyway, this moves to the creative. So perhaps, if you're feeling that you're financially secure, that you feel that you've answered some financial questions and things are starting to resolve, this is a situation where you can perhaps start to actually create something with what you have. You can really make things happen, and maybe it's suggesting that money creates more money. the creative. Once you've got money, if you're comfortable with money, then that allows you to make even more money. And maybe it's also about confidence. It's very difficult sometimes to ask for more money if you are financially nervous. Because if you're financially nervous, you might feel that if you ask for more money, you might lose someone's support financially, and so you might feel, well, it's better to just keep quiet because you don't want to lose what you've got. But with the creative, it seems that with financial confidence, that allows you to ask for more money. It allows you to take action to increase your income, increase your wealth, and I think that is definitely something you can do. But it is a creative. It's a raw energy. So perhaps you shouldn't have too fixed a view about how you might be able to be creative with money, and in terms of bringing in more money. Don't be chaotic, but don't have a totally fixed view about the way things might work out. So I'm now going to turn to career and business and that work, jobs, that kind of stuff. 14, possession in great measure. I think in some respects, this hexagram is talking about your abilities and your skills. It seems that you've got a lot. You've got a lot of talents. If you are able to use all these talents, everything that's in your possession, you have the potential for being really very successful at work. And I think it can be a really good week, whatever you're trying to achieve. If you're in a job, I think you will have plenty of opportunities to show the people around you, employers, etc., what you can do. If you are looking for a job, then it's a great time for telling potential employers about all the wonderful things you can do. So, with resumes and whatever, maybe a resume needs a rewrite because in your first resume, you haven't gone into enough detail. You need to be clearer about all your possessions in terms of your experience and your qualifications and all that kind of stuff. So don't be modest with possession in great measure. And likewise, if you're self-employed or you're running a business and you're trying to get new business or new contracts, you've got to really talk yourself up because you've got a lot. You're better than the competition, for sure. It's possession in great measure. It doesn't get any better than that. So again, there is no room for modesty. And possession in great measure is also about money, and bringing money in through your work, through your business, is, I'm sure, something that's important. And with hexagram 14, I think that is something you're going to be able to do. So don't undersell yourself, and don't charge too little for your products or for your, if you're asked how much you want for a job, don't be too modest about it. Obviously, be reasonable, but I think with possession in great measure, you can get more than expected for your labour. And this hexagram 14, it moves to hexagram number 1, the creative, and with this hexagram, it shows in terms of your approach to career, business, it just shows how creative you can be. You can start to initiate something new, something completely new. You may not be too sure where it's going at first. it may be just a completely new point of departure, but you're ready for this. You're ready to take action. It is the creative. It is about raw creativity. It's not about creativity where you kind of know what you're doing. You want to, I don't know, paint a picture, have a piano lesson where you know what you want to do. This is creativity that is supported by immense primal power, and that's what you've got to bring to bear in your work, in your business, because other people, clients, employers, whatever, they're going to pick up on this power, and they're going to think, "Wow, you are a major force, maybe a force of nature." And if you can present yourself as a force of nature, then I don't know. It's almost like nothing can stop you. I'm just a bit uncomfortable being so positive, but the hexagram is good. The creative, okay, the creative, it's a quite out of control hexagram, but I think if you can harness it, I think things do look good. And finally, I want to look at relationships. I think in terms of relationships, you've got so much as a person in terms of your abilities, your talents, the kind of person you are. Anyone who is in a relationship with you should treat themselves as being very fortunate, because you've got so much to give, so much to offer, and I don't think you have to really compromise, because really you need to have an immense sense of your own worth. There's absolutely no room here for negative thinking, for thinking that you're not special, for thinking that another person might not be interested in you. And I'm talking about all kinds of relationships here. I'm not just talking about romance. You've got so much, and you absolutely deserve to be appreciated. And one thing that the I Ching mentions with this moving line is that one reason that people are going to like you so much is because you're honest and you're uncomplicated, and there's no hidden motive here. And people are really going to pick up on that, and they're going to like you for that. Now, there is some small danger that they might, take you for granted, but that's not something you should accept. You don't have to compromise at all this week in terms of relationships. No room for compromise. You don't have to compromise. It's not necessary. You can be yourself, and because people are that's what people want. They want you to be yourself, and they want you to be serious about how wonderful you are, and that's I think how you should carry yourself. Regardless of what the situation is. I mean, if you're already in a relationship, then you can demand and expect respect, and it will be, if you don't compromise, you're very clear about what you want, the other person is going to give you that respect. I'm fairly confident they are. Because I think you will be recognized, and everything you've got, everything that makes you wonderful, is going to be very clear. If you're looking for a new relationship, you don't have to compromise. The right person will immediately recognize it. Things are looking good, and this hexagram, 14, possession in great measure, it does move to hexagram number 1, the creative. So, you know, this indicates that relationships can move forward on all levels. Now, don't have any, you know, preconceptions about how things should turn out, because this is about the creative. As I've said, you know, it is primal. Just once you're involved with people, let the thing develop, and it all comes from you. It all comes from a power within you. The creative. It's like the dragon waking up. The dragon is certainly alive and well. Dragons are very much associated with this first hexagram. A lot of dragons here. So the dragon is and it's it's a year of a dragon as well, isn't it? And that's perhaps an indication there. You know, this is I think this is the first I Ching reading I've done in the year of the dragon, and the creative it's to do with dragons, and so you can let the dragon loose, and don't apologize about letting the dragon loose. Be the dragon, and be creative, and the other person, the people around you, they will fall into line, and they will become part of this. And so relationships, like everyone else, if you allow everything to just flow in that creative, optimistic, but respectful way, I mean, respectful as in demanding respect, then this could be an area of growth and satisfaction. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you have a great week. I think this week does look good. I mean, if we're looking at the astrology, the astrology did suggest a certain amount of tension at times, with that Mars-Pluto conjunction. But the I Ching is kind of saying, well, that Mars-Pluto conjunction is going to be fortunate. I mean, I'm not saying just from the astrological perspective it is going to be fortunate, but if I take the I Ching perspective, then Mars-Pluto is perhaps an energy that we can actually use to really push forward and possession in great measure. There's a lot coming our way if we can handle it. Okay, thank you very much for listening, watching this video. I hope you found it useful and interesting, maybe even uplifting. I mean, I'm sorry to be so positive with my I Ching reading. I'm not usually so positive, but make the most of it. If you enjoyed this video, I would of course be grateful if you liked it, and if you're not subscribed, I would be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.